This is a simple quick start guide on how to start the FlyByWire A380X from cold and dark to takeoff. Let's go. And welcome to the flight deck of the A380. Let's go ahead and get this thing started and in the air, starting with the battery. So battery 1, ES bat, bat 2, and APU bat. Next, we'll turn on the external power in this order: external 2, 3, 1, and 4. You can hear everything powering up. At this point, you can turn on your cockpit lighting. If it's dark, that cockpit lighting will be down here on the right center pedestal. Integral lighting, main flood, and so on. Back up to the top though, we'll go ahead and get the APU master on, which is right down here. APU master switch on and the APU start switch on. And once the APU is up, we'll get everything else powered. You can see everything else is slowly powering on. That flap is open, which means the APU is starting up. We can see our N1 rising. There it is, 99%, 100%, and APU is avail. If you look back up to the top, we'll now see a green lettering saying avail for APU available. We'll click on the APU bleed next, and we'll stick to the top here of the overhead, and we'll get the ADIRs, nav, and nav. And then basically you want to extinguish all of these white lights, and there's one way up here to the top called NSS data. We'll click on that one first. And then we'll come down to the left side and you hit the ground recorder, which is actually currently in op, and crew supply to off. And then you want to punch all of your fuel pumps on. Now, the way I normally personally do this is I don't turn my fuel pumps on until after I have actually loaded my fuel, but it doesn't necessarily matter in the sim. All right, all the fuel pumps are on and the white lights are extinguished. Let's continue to slide down here and we'll get our nav lights on. On the right side, we have our emergency lights up to the arm position, and our smoking signs on, and we'll turn on our seatbelt signs on as well. Next, we'll go over to the EFB. Over on the left, you can see right now is a black screen. All you gotta do is tap on it to bring it to life. It's gonna turn on. Doesn't take too long to load. Pretty nice. And you can see actually already it's imported my fuel and payload. Now to set that up is actually very easy. There's a little gear icon on the bottom for your settings. Click on that and then go to third-party options. And in here you'll see you can link your Navigraph account and you can do your SimBrief user ID. So if you don't have a Navigraph account, your SimBrief ID is all you need. So just put that in there and you're good to go. You can also select automatically import SimBrief data. That's what I have. And then if you have GSX, you can also do GSX integration, but I won't be doing that for this video. Obviously, you need a SimBrief account or GSX for any of this to work. But let's go back to the main. And as you can see here, our flight plan has automatically loaded in. If you need to reload it in, if you made a change, you can click on the import SimBrief data. You have your weather on the right side. You also have the ability to see charts. If I click on the go to page, we can go to here. I don't have any charts pinned, but if I click on from or to, it shows my from and to airports. For an example, I'll go to the taxi charts. We'll go to airport. We can click on airport. We can now see that chart on the right side. Again, this will only work if you have Navigraph chart subscription and it's linked to the FlyByWire aircraft in the third-party settings. But if you do have that, you can go ahead and click the little pin to pin that to your home screen. Now that I go back to my home screen, we can now see that our chart is pinned, and all the charts you pin will show up right there. Hopefully that was helpful, but let's move on. We'll click on the third icon here, which is for ground services, and here is where you can load your fuel and payload. We'll go to the services tab first, and here you can actually connect your ground power, open up your cargo doors. Now these doors can only be opened if the aircraft is powered, because if it's not going to be able to use the hydraulics and things like that. You can also open up your doors, connect jet bridges, fuel trucks, and etc. And because I use GSX can actually control those doors for me. So I'll go ahead and hit request boarding, and we'll select, we'll go with Taiwan Airport Services. So you can see there, jet bridge is connecting, and that will handle the ground services from here on out. Let's move on to the fuel though. On the fuel page, because we've imported our flight plan and information from SimBrief, it already has a predetermined number here, but if you want to change that, you can just move this left or right. You can also click in here to change that as well. I'm going to hit the cloud icon to sync that to my SimBrief right up there. We'll go ahead and attach the tug, that's fine. And nobody. And we'll hit the play icon here to actually instantly load our fuel. If you want that to be more realistic, you can click on the refuel time of fast or real. For payload, it is very similar. Here on the left, you can see passengers plan 385, cargo, and 0 fuel weight. You can customize all these numbers just by clicking inside of here. Change your boarding time from instant, fast, which is 6 minutes, to real, which is about 32 minutes based on our load. But we're going to do instant for today, and we'll hit the double arrows to begin boarding. And you can see that's now populated our whole aircraft, both on the main and upper decks. And we will leave this page up because we're going to need it later. Let's go down to our MCDU. So down here is very similar if you're used to using Airbuses, but I'll show you how to do it anyways. Make sure you're on FMS 1, which is the first option, and then we'll click on active. Make sure you're in init. That'll bring you to the initialization page. Now if you want to do it the easy way, which is what I recommend, and import your Simbri flight plan, you can click on company flight plan request right here. It'll do uplink insert in progress. Once that's done, it'll then say received company flight plan. You can then click on that and click insert. But I'm going to show you guys how to do it manually for those who want to do that. Hit clear. And if you don't want to see how to manually import a flight plan into the A380, you can skip this entire part starting now. So we can put our flight number right here, which we'll put as Korean 116 as my flight number. We'll go to from, and currently we are at Romeo Charlie Sierra Sarah. Now what I'm doing here is I'm clicking in the box and I'm using my actual in real life keyboard to type in the numbers, but you could, if you wanted to, for whatever reason, actually use a real in cockpit keyboard as well. I'm not going to do that today. So we'll click here, RKSI, enter. Our alternate is Romeo Kilo Tango Uniform, enter on my keyboard. For our cruise flight level right now, it's going to be 390, enter. Cost index is going to be 121. And if you're wondering where to get that information, you can go over here to your second tab. This will show you your dispatch information. You can actually get a lot of this right here. So our cost index CI is 121. All right, next we'll click on IRS, and you can see here that our IRS is actually aligned. If it wasn't aligned, it would actually tell us how long until the alignment is done here on the right of that table. We'll click on return. We'll then go to departure, and then obviously you need to look at your flight plan for what you need. But for us, we'll click on runway. It's going to be runway 10 for departure. And then we'll click on SID, which is our standard instrument departure, and click on piano J. With no transition, we'll click on temporary flight plan at the bottom right. That's good to go. Insert temporary flight plan. And now that has been inserted. And to continue our flight plan from piano, we'll click on that last waypoint in our flight plan. Then we'll go to either insert next waypoint, or in our case, we have airways. We have an airway coming up. So we'll click on VIA. We'll type in our airway, which is Lima 3, enter. And then on the right, we'll click on Sierra Alpha Lima Mike India, enter. And then you just continue this process until you get all of your waypoints in. So 743, enter, and pilot. All right, there's our last waypoint on our flight plan, and what I'm gonna do is go down here to the temporary flight plan button again, click on that. It'll then give you a preview of those waypoints, and then we'll hit insert temporary flight plan. We can hit the double arrows to scroll down. We could also hit destination on the right to scroll to the bottom of our flight plan. What we want to do now is we want to insert our arrival and approach in our flight plan. So we'll click on RKSI here or here. Either way it works. So we'll click on RKSI here. We'll go straight to approach, and the approach we're expecting right now is 34 right. So we'll click on that scroll wheel and drag down. It's all touchscreen, and then we'll click on ILS 34 right. That's what we're expecting, and then that automatically puts our runway in. We'll then go over to the STAR, the standard terminal arrival, and we'll be looking for Ulm. So we'll scroll down. There's Ulm 2 Echo. Click on that. No transition. We do have a VIA though. The VIA will be INPL. Click on that. That's good to go, and we'll go ahead and hit temporary flight plan and insert that. And then obviously you want to check your flight plan to make sure it's good, but I know it's good. Let's move on. Now let's do our weight and balance here. So we'll go to active, drop down, and we'll go to fuel and load. Click on that, and this is where we're going to put in our 0 fuel weight. So where we get these information from is back on our EFB on that page that I was mentioning, this one right here. So our 0 fuel weight is going to be this number right here, 340047. So we're going to round that to 340.1 after that third digit. I'm going to round up, by the way. And then right here, we'll put 340.1. Now I am in kilograms, so if you're in pounds, just, adjust accordingly. We also need the CG, which is this bottom row, 35.3. Again, we are rounding up. So right here, we'll click on 35.3 and enter. And then our block fuel will go to our fuel page. It shows 35.1. So again, this be 35.1 for 35,100. We'll then go here to our block fuel 35.1 and enter. You can also get this number from right here, 35.1, but it depends on how long you've been sitting on the ground. Sometimes this number will actually go down as your APU is on. Now we have 385 passengers, so we can type that in and enter. And that's all we need to do on this page. Click back on the active drop down and then go to perf, and we'll do our performance. And so for this, I'm going to slide over to the simbrief.com website to actually calculate our V speeds and takeoff data. It's very easy to do. After you've generated your flight plan, you'll be on this screen. And on the very top of this screen, you can go to takeoff performance. You can go here, or you can do it on the left side where it says performance tools. It's in both locations. They do the same thing. Click on takeoff performance. That'll take us to our performance page. Now in the A380, our ground weight is 375,100 kilograms. So in SimBrief, all I need to change here is my takeoff weight to 375,100. That'll make all this much more accurate. But we'll go down and hit populate weather. It is actually slightly raining, so it is a wet surface condition. And we'll hit calculate. And now what we need is these options right here. There's our flaps, our V1, VR, V2, and our flex thrust temp of 38. So for V1, as I said, 129, 129, and 148. You can leave it in toga, or you can do flex at 38 and enter. Now for THS, we can actually grab that from right over here, which is going to be ground weight CG, 36.4. So we'll put that right here. Click there, 36.4, and enter. And then lastly, what I do is I go to my climb page, and I'll just put a pre-selected speed of 250 knots. So that way, when we put our throttle back into thrust lever climb, that'll be the pre-selected speed it'll fly. And while we're down here, we're going to click on FMS here at the top of your screen and go down to serve. Once you click on that, that'll bring you to your transponder page, and this is where you can actually set your squawk code once you get your ATC clearance. So put 2116, and set that to auto, and once you know it's appropriate, you can set this to TARA once you're moving the aircraft, and you're good to go there. Now back up here to the top, we'll go make sure our flight director is on and the green light is lit. We'll set our QNH, which you can get from the weather briefing, which for me is showing as 1019. And as you saw there, you can switch between both of those there. I'll go ahead and set my altitude for my cruise of 39,000 feet, but you can set this to whatever ATC clears you up to on initial climb. And then you can go over here and do the up arrow click to make sure you have the dashes between speed and heading. And another cool thing about this aircraft is the actual map. If you take your map here and you just scroll it back to zoom, you look down at the screen here, you'll then have this map here. Now this map will only work if you have your FlyByWire A380 linked to Navigraph. If you do not have Navigraph, this map will not work. But if you do, it is touchscreen, you can move it around, it's pretty darn cool. So let's set up our radios, and the way you operate this is once you're in the VHF section here, you can just type in the numbers you want, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, and then it's in big letters. Once you click on the actual button, makes it in small letters, and now it's in a queue to be moved over to the main frequency, just like that. And to be able to actually hear over that frequency, you can click on the call button. Make sure that this is also lit, and you have the green bar here. You can also change your squawk code in here as well. All you gotta do is click on the numbers, and then you let go, and then it places it in there. And with that, we are ready for pushback. So let's go up to the top, and we're gonna get our external power disconnected. And you can do this in any order. You can just go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll go over to our EFB, make sure all of our doors are indeed shut. So we'll go to the ground services, go to services, we'll get that door shut there, get that door shut there, and get the ground power unit disconnected as well. Make sure that your APU is on before you disconnect the ground power. All right, there it is. All of those are disconnected and good. Let's now go back up top and get our beacon light on to signal people around us that we are ready for movement. So we'll call for pushback, and you can do pushback however you please. Fly-by-wire does also have its own pushback function inside the EFB, and it works pretty good. All I gotta do to turn it on is click on pushback system on or off, but we're gonna use GSX today. There goes the jet bridge. And once the tug is connected, we'll release our parking brake.
Commencing push. All engines clear. Start at will.
All right, we will do exactly that. So the ignition switch is at the top, unlike the other Airbuses. So we'll put our ignition starter into the ignition start position. And then wait about 10 seconds or so. Don't really have to, but wait about 10 seconds or so. And then you can start both engines 1 and 2 at the same time.
Tow truck disconnected. Bypass been removed.
And once you get a good start, that engine will say avail, and you can start up engine 3 and 4. Nice. After a good engine start on all 4 engines, you can now go back to the overhead and set your ignition switch back to normal. We'll also get our APU bleed off and our APU master switch off as well. Let's go back down to the bottom now and get our spoilers armed by pulling them up, and we'll set our flaps by putting them into takeoff position, which is 1 for us. Now we'll set our auto brakes to disarm and press on the RTO button for eject takeoff. Back to the center, we'll make sure our rudder trim is zeroed out, and we'll set our pitch trim, which is right here. So you can click up and down. And as you can see, I set my pitch trim to the THS setting that we had in our performance data earlier, so 36.4. All right, ECAM looks good. And we'll now do our flight control check. We're checking my Thrustmaster TC8 Airbus joystick here, and everything looks good to me. And that's it, we're ready for taxi. Back to the top, we'll get our taxi lights on, runway turn-off lights on for a nighttime taxi, and brakes off. Now that we're moving, we'll set our takeoff config test, which is right here next to our transponder, so TO config. And if you followed everything that I showed you, you should have all green and no blue showing takeoff config normal. You are ready for takeoff for the most part. Alright, we're approaching runway 10 here in Taiwan, and we'll go ahead and get our landing lights turned on. Landing lights on. There we go. Wing lights on, strobe lights on. And cabin is ready. Let's go ahead and line up. And while we're lining up, just a couple miscellaneous items you can set up here on the autopilot section. You hit the constraint. That'll show your altitude constraints on your flight plan. You can also set your traffic here, which is in green, and the terrain, which we actually might need out here in Taipei today. He's a big aircraft, so give her plenty of room to turn. And also don't forget you're sitting pretty high. Alright, we're lined up pretty decently here. We can also see the runway down there on our mini screen. And basically, if you're doing a flex takeoff, you can throw the throttle straight in the flex. If you're doing toga, you do the same for toga. So throttle forward into flex, throttle set. You can see flex is now set 38, and we are power set, and airspeed is alive. A little bit of down nose wheel pressure. And V1, rotate. You're up. Alright, flaps up. Pitching for 15 degrees. Following the flight director. Alright, lever climb. We'll bring our throttle back to lever climb detent. As you can see, there's that auto selected speed, 250. And autopilot 1 on.
2,500.
And up click speed, or manage speed. Alright, we're set. Throttle climb is set. Climb is set, and speed set to 250 knots. We are following the flight plan. We are airborne. Hopefully, this tutorial was helpful to you. And I hope you enjoy flying the A380. And I'll see you in the skies, guys. Thanks for watching. Remember, you have 3 choices. Give up, give in, and give it all you got. Peace, love, and God bless you. I'll see you guys next time. Next video. Good luck.